Hello, hello, everybody. It's Matt Stranik from the Matt and Dan Show, aka Today New Brunswick, Tomorrow the World. Really glad to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. Dan, how's it going today, man?
Not too bad. Not too bad.
What do they call the stat holiday that we have across this country in Nova Scotia?
I'm gonna have to
Random trivia, dude. Don't mean to throw you under the bus here or nothing, but
I'm gonna have to double check that just because it was different this year.
okay, it got switched up. What was it before?
I think it was like Family Day or something like that.
Family Day. That's what
Uh,
we got here in BC. So hence my waiting to shoo my family out before we began this recording, right? So
yeah,
um,
yeah,
I did the thing with the academic one with Doug the other day, and he couldn't. I don't even remember what he told me, but it's
yeah.
a local variation.
Oh
Anyway,
yeah.
man.
It's I just had to double check it here. It was actually Nova Scotia Heritage Day.
Geez, what does
Um,
that mean? That's pretty.
uh,
I can think of some unfortunate instances of that, Okay.
yeah, it's I think
They're
yeah,
more
there's
about boats than usual. I mean,
yeah, well, it's more. It's Rita Joe, the Mi'kmaq elder and author. Was sort of it's the year to sort of celebrate her work in particular in Nova
oh,
Scotia.
well, I'll
Yeah,
just walk back every cynical, creepy thing that I just said then, huh?
I mean, there's enough of that the rest of the year in Nova Scotia, to be honest.
Yeah,
The this the
I've heard some things. I mean, I've heard things
yeah,
about other places too, but
yeah. But no, that's actually this time around. That's what they're doing. That's what
It's
we're
the
doing in Nova
official.
Scotia.
It's the official stat holiday evening edition of
Mhm.
Today New Brunswick, Tomorrow the World.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. So why don't you tell us what we're talking about here and why, dude? It's a very compelling topic. What is it? What are we talking about?
Well, it's the topic, sort of the broad topic was new to me in 2023.
Yeah.
Just because I was thinking, like, it's been, we're just almost 2 months into 2023 now, and between like sort of new releases starting to come out, catching up on stuff that might have showed up on people's year-end lists, and just like, you know, things
Right. No.
happening. It's
Exactly.
and just like being exposed to different stuff. Like, yeah, I found there was a couple things I found myself catching up on from last year. Some things I hadn't listened to in a long time. Some artists I hadn't listened to in quite some time that I revisited, and then like, I had a new artist that's coming out with an album like next month that's pretty exciting that I also wanted to put on my list as well. So I figured,
Well,
and I know that
I
you'd been picking up some new stuff too. So I figured, like, hey, let's talk about some other new things that we've been catching up on and getting into.
we do pride ourselves as well as on our handsome good looks and appealing video and audio presence. We pride ourselves on being somewhat contemporary. We like to think we keep sort of slightly up on the stuff that's coming up, being that I think Dan
Mhm.
and I are equally obsessed with music. Probably we could debate that a bit, but it's kind of the basis for the show, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of did the whole, sort of heavy Atlantic. It was heavy. It was fun, but
Oh
it
yeah.
was heavy. It was a heavy episode.
Yep.
In terms of even the fact that it went long. So this is just like snapping back to the current moment
Exactly.
here in the 2023 that we live in. So,
Yep.
Dan, without further ado, I'd be quite interested, man, since you sort of provided some very compelling, uh, you know, suggestions about what you got here.
Yeah.
Is your list like ranked in any particular hierarchical thing, or is it
Not
just like,
really.
okay,
Though
okay,
there's a couple things that's like, I guess it could be grouped by like I said, there's a couple sort of new to me artists that have either just put out their first sort of wider
their
release
first
albums, or
forays
just
into
about
the
to,
yeah,
or like,
okay.
then there's like an artist that I've sort of seen in the background that I've just sort of been catching up on what they've been doing on their own, and then like a couple artists that I just hadn't listened to for a while that I was inspired to revisit for various
Go.
reasons.
Well, who
Um
do you want to mention first?
Okay, well, first, I might as well get into, I guess, the new band that I'm pretty excited about, Zulu.
Okay. Haven't heard of them? Tell me all
Um,
about them, dude.
They've been around for probably almost 4 years now. They started in 2019.
Are we talking punk music or like what
Yes,
kind of? Okay.
punk, heavy, just very heavy hardcore for the most part, but with influences from other genres because it's part of their whole thing. And again, kind of like when we talked about Soul Glow on the first episode, I gotta say, like, yeah, like I'm a middle-aged white dude. I've been part of the punk rock scene for a long time, and it's like with artists like Zulu, it's like I really appreciate what you're doing, and I don't know if I can speak on like the depth of the message. I just say look up some interviews. But
Okay,
basically,
so Zulu
it started out. They
sorry,
started out as a solo.
is it a black punk band?
Yes, they started out
Okay,
as a
fair.
solo project of a guy named Anaya Lee, who had played drums in a bunch of straight edge bands in the LA area in like the 2000 teens.
Okay.
Specifically, I guess most popular ones were a band called Dare, and then because of course there's a straight edge band called Dare, and another band that was kind of popular for a while until some of the members of the band turned out to be not so cool people, called Culture Abuse. That was like his first chance to really tour globally. And in this one interview with Zulu that I was reading, I think from Revolver magazine, it's talked about, Anaya Lee was talking about playing shows in South Africa and how different the crowds were there and how excited he was to see, just different crowd. Yeah, it's just like more black people than say shows that he'd see at shows in LA. So it started Zulu as a way to sort of just like, I guess, celebrate and just talk about just sort of like celebrate being black folks in punk rock and just sort of their perspectives. And they try to highlight a lot of other black music sort of as
So
part of their whole thing, where like between set when they play live they'll play like reggae and jazz and stuff between songs. And like they've got, like I said, they've got an album coming out in a couple weeks called A New Tomorrow,
awesome.
on Flat Spot Records, which is kind of like the hot hardcore label at the moment.
Okay.
And
I did not know that. That's good for me to know.
Well, that's the label that I don't know if you heard the band Scowl at all.
Nope.
That like they were the band handpicked to open for Limp Bizkit on their reunion tour.
Oh.
Anyways, Scowl are sort of like the Bad Religion and/or Offspring and/or NoFX if Flat Spot were Epitaph kind of deal.
Okay.
And Zulu are one of the other bands on this label that are kind of getting, rising tide raises all boats.
Yeah.
But anyways, like they've started like one of the songs on their new album that they've released in advance is just like a straight up hip hop song, with one of the guitar players taking over vocals and like just doing a rap about stuff. And like
it's
I said,
legit.
It's just about his perspective on life. And
that's cool.
They did a
really
great homage to the Tribe Called Quest Scenario video for one of the other songs in the new album that they released in advance called Where I'm From.
Can I just
where they've got it's because I mean there's two, like Anaya Lee just does vocals, and it's started out as a solo project where he played all the instruments. Right now he only just does vocals, and their drummer does some of the vocals as well. And there's Anaya, and I can't remember the drummer's name. But yeah, the two of them, I forgot to put in my notes. But yeah, the two of them trading off vocals, and then we've got guest vocals from the guy from Soul Glow and the singer from like another like black hardcore band from Atlanta called Playtime. So they just completely recreated the Tribe Called Quest Scenario video, where it's the big posse cut with all of their friends doing guest vocals. So they just did, except it's Zulu and all their black punk friends hanging out, and it's pretty great. I'm gonna put a link to it in the notes. But just seeing that, I was just like, oh, this is awesome. And like I said, their album's coming out in a couple weeks. Their Instagram handle is Black Power Violence, which I don't know if you're familiar with the musical subgenre of power violence.
Yeah,
and that's the whole thing. It's like they definitely draw influence from that. So it's a lot of really fast parts, really big, heavy, slow breakdowns, that kind of thing. But like while celebrating all other aspects of like their life and culture. And it's pretty freaking great. And yeah, their new album is worth checking out. They've got a couple EPs as well. Like I said, the first one was recorded. Yeah, it's just like Anaya Lee playing all the instruments, and the second one is, I think, as a full band, but they've got like spoken word stuff on there too. And yeah, it's like pretty cool. It's like it's kind of nice seeing like a young, angry, smart punk band with like a vision and a message and their whole thing thought out. Not just like, yeah, we're here to play some songs, here to party, whatever. Yeah, no, they're pretty great. And every live video I've seen of them, their sets are less than 20 minutes. And it's like, I can appreciate that. Like if you're playing like loud, fast, heavy music, it's like, a 20-minute set is like the perfect length for those kind of bands sometimes. And it's, yeah, I don't know. I've really been enjoying it. Like I said, they've got 2 EPs, and yeah, their first album will be out it's one of the many albums coming out in the first couple weeks of March that are pretty exciting. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I mean, you've certainly made me sound, you made it sound, totally like something that I would be interested in. And I'm sorry I kept trying to jump in on you there, like
that's
literally
okay.
on top of you a couple of times. It's just like, I guess what you were saying was motivating the thought, at the moment. So just a couple of things with that. First of all, black punk band, much respect. And again, I hate to say that the asides into jazz and other, like kind of other types of music, hip hop and whatnot, as part of their thing. I mean, you don't want to just say like, it sounds like Bad Brains, but that's exactly what Bad Brains did. They had these fucking brutally slow reggae numbers in addition to the hardest, fastest hardcore ever made. So, but then what you're describing too, in terms of the references to Soul Glow, like all the sort of aspects of the craft that you kind of described, I'm like, that is pretty much in line with all the Soul Glow videos that I've had, that I've watched, and certainly with the record Diaspora Problems, which is now just coming out available. It was released by Epitaph digitally last year. It's now just coming out on vinyl. I've got it pre-ordered. Nice. I'm pretty stoked for that, just because I'm clearly a vinyl, I was going to say vinyl whore, but this is like a family-friendly show. No, man, again, what I appreciate about your perspective here is, again, you sort of bring it in terms of a community perspective, a scene perspective. So lots of entry points for those of us who haven't necessarily checked it. And the very last thing about your awesome commentary about that band was when you mentioned the scenario video. Like we literally did an episode of the Ed Tech podcast 2 days ago, and we literally called it, So What's the Scenario? Nice. And then at the bottom of it, we had that awesome original, it's retro, futuristic, and it's so friggin' dope. So yep. I was like, what? Anyways, Tribe Called Quest. Check them out, kids, if you haven't. Okay. So yeah, thanks for all that, and thanks for putting up with my post banter there,
no
man.
problem.
Thoughtful commentary as always. So for me, this is going to be my big one, and anything else that I even just sort of say afterwards is going to be kind of like, it's there, it's important, but it's kind of diminished, I'm even going to say. The Lawrence Arms is a band from Chicago, and they've done the same kind of thing that Alkaline Trio did in terms of their career. In as much as they put out a couple of records on Asian Man Records, which I've got on order from, it's like, oh, this is an excuse to go buy 9 things on the Asian Man website. So they, started out there, like Alkaline Trio, made the move to Fat Records, and then went on to do some things with Epitaph, and I believe their most recent releases are actually with Epitaph. And they've been, but they started in the late 1990s, and they've just been, again, I'm just like, I'm astounded at the literary quality of, the lyrics over like bar rock. And that has been just something that appeals to me, right? Since I've gotten into this kind of music, except it's like, it's because it's Fat Records as opposed to like major label stuff. Again, they got popular, but like they would be the ones opening for somebody like Alkaline Trio, who, you know, subsequently went on to Vagrant Records and, you know, this a kind of more high profile career. So, I mean, it's very rare that I sort of encounter a band that I haven't, you know, heard of and listened to at this point, you know, that's been around that long. And I'm just like, man, okay. Fortunately for me, they've only got about 6 or 7 records that are even in print now. So rounding them up isn't going to be a problem. But it's just this friggin' trio of just furious dudes who have a wicked sense of humor. And it's just friggin', they come from the land of Nelson Algren, right? You know, like the literary.
Oh, Nelson Algren.
Man with a golden arm, man. Chicago. Yes. He was the Chicago writer, man. Among others, I mean, I'm sure, but he's like, you know, the cool guy. The one that I read, Man with the Golden Arm, made a movie about that with Frank Sinatra back in the day. Fantastic. You should check him out.
Yeah.
You want to jump in there, bud?
Yes, I just want to quickly jump in there.
Please.
I have the email address I've been using for like probably close to 20 years now is a reference to the Man with the Man with the Golden Arm in it, with accidents. Though I will say I got into Nelson Algren through pop punk, specifically Dillinger 4, because they had the lyric, Nelson Algren came to me and said, "Celebrate the ugly things," because the beat upside of what they call pride. It will be the measure of these
Coke,
days.
No ice. You know what's better? You know the only thing better than double whiskey Coke no ice is Leatherface's cover of double whiskey Coke no ice. I got so drunk in so many hotel rooms just by myself doing shooters out of the mini bar on some conference, like, oh, you know. Oh yeah, no.
Sorry,
so
I just got very excited about the Nelson Algren reference.
Well, Nelson Algren, but then
over to you again.
But then via Charles Bukowski, you know. And again, it's like it's the things that I liked about beach slang before the guy turned out to be a total asshole. And you know, whatever. It's just like upbeat, depressive music that's fast and loud and shit. I don't even know what else. They got 3 videos and they're all pretty rad for their genre. Again, this is the one last thing I'll say about them that sort of marks them as being like cool. I was reading a thing about it. They managed to get kicked off the band's Warped Tour the one time they went on because they basically just went up on stage every day and just said, "This is robbing all the indie touring festivals. You know, I used to be able to go on tour with these other bands and we'd all be sort of out there doing." And he's like, "The band's Warped Tour sucks and we hate this." And anyway, they got kicked off after a week. So props to that, I suppose. You know, in my world, that counts for some cred.
Yeah.
So anyways, dude, I'm pretty stoked. They don't like have any new releases or anything that I'm aware of coming this year. I'm just listening to all of it that I can right now and soaking it up so that, you know, they're in my top 7, you know, thereabouts, right? A new entry into the pantheon of punk in my world. So, Dan, what do we got for you going on here with your next one, dude?
My next one, I'm actually going to switch genres entirely here and talk about. So it's like I realize it's kind of, I feel like it's something a little ironic to go from like talking about like a black punk band for my first pick and then 2 white kids playing hip hop jazz for my second pick. But I wanted to talk about Domi and JD Beck.
Never heard of them.
I'd only heard their name recently, but I'd seen them in the background. I don't know if you're familiar with the musician with Thundercat at all.
Yep.
Yes. They've been backup musicians for Thundercat off and on for quite a bit. Okay. And it's like, I just remember seeing videos of him on YouTube playing with these like little hipster jazz elves is the only way I can describe them, backing him up. These little cherubic, just, you know, just fresh-faced cherubic little kids in like bright neon, like, but are just phenomenal like drummer and keyboard player.
Nice.
Just recently I realized they have an album, like they released an album last year called Not Tight. And like it's got everybody from like Snoop Dogg to Mac DeMarco as like guest vocalists on it.
That's a pretty
And
broad range there. That's
and I looked into it's like once I finally even found out what their names were, I looked into them a little more. It's Domi Luna. Domi Luna is like a French jazz keyboardist. JD Beck is a drummer from Texas. They met in music school when they were teenagers. Both discovered they love hip hop as well. And then, kind of at the right parties, met the right people sort of thing, and ended up collaborating with a guy named Anderson .Paak a lot, who
he's dope, man. I mean,
he's great. I've been listening. Yeah. He's I'm a big fan of his. And they even co-wrote one or two of the songs on his Silk Sonic album that went into the top 40 last year.
So these people have pedigree, is what you're saying.
Yes, and you look at them, and it's like your bones will turn to dust when you watch these kids play instruments, and your hair just turns white, because they're just I'm sure it's all part of their marketing image of just hey, these young, bright-looking kids, but and the thing that when I listened to their album a bunch, one of the things that blew me away was I've been trying to finish up a couple of books that I just you get to a point you're almost done a book, and it's so you get distracted. One of them was a biography / sort of musical study of the work of hip hop producer Jay Dilla, called Dilla Time.
Okay.
That really went into analyzing the influence he had on literally the concept of rhythm, and how sort of he used drum machines to create these kind of almost off time but incredibly rhythmically complicated beats when you broke it down, for artists like Mos Def, Erykah Badu. He produced a ton, even produced stuff for Janet Jackson. He was part of the group Slum Village. Anyways, but I could hear the influence that stuff that Jay Dilla did, and artists like Madlib and all these other just really cool, intense hip hop producers that I have on these two little jazz kids from Texas and France respectively. And it's and then even one of the videos I was going to put in the notes is I found it's something they put on YouTube of them after MF Doom passed away. They did just a 4.5 minute video of them jamming on different songs from his album Mad Villainy, just keyboard and drums, and recreating and just playing around with the beats and stuff, just with it's, I don't know, it's I listen to a lot of pretty raw and not necessarily technically complicated music a lot of the time, but I can still appreciate it when people are really fucking good at what they're doing. And these kids are really fucking good at what they're doing.
Yeah,
exactly. And it's really very heavily influenced by a lot of other artists that I like, and it's just kind of cool seeing these two young kids drawing heavy influence from kind of obscure, interesting, influential hip hop artists, and then doing songs with Snoop Dogg and that kind of thing.
I can see that.
Yeah, and their album's called Not Tight.
Nice.
It's worth checking out. If that kind of thing might be interesting.
Not tight, not as in a knot.
No, NOT.
Okay. Thought there might be a double entendre to be had there, but
just the single entendre.
Okay.
Which it's for them to call themselves Not Tight, they are very very good.
Very
at what
tight.
They're doing.
They are
incredibly
tight. Yeah,
Yes.
if you heard one of their joints on the radio, you go, that's a tight joint those kids
exactly
played. Yeah, I got you. Well, that sounds extremely cool, man.
Yeah.
And again, thanks for the broader context within the communities that this emerged from. And jazz elves. I don't know. I think
that's the only way I can describe. If you just see a picture of them, it's the only way to describe them is jazz elves, or they should be part of they're two of the teens in a 70s sitcom doing a spin-off variety show or something, because they'll wear matching little jumpsuits and stuff sometimes, and
you're getting into white stripes kind of turf there.
Yeah, almost
that way. But in terms of the branding, in terms of
it
sounds like a lot of Rivers lead into these kids,
Yes.
and then a lot of rivers lead out, going in different ways. It's like they sort of, it sounds like there's a lot of channeling going on and rechanneling of sorts, right? So to the postmodern method, and to people who to do it well. It's nice though. I mean, you can imagine, right? Just being in your 20s or whatever, and then suddenly, apart from just the artistic rewards, just like, yeah, I'm financially reasonable enough that I can just kind of do this limitlessly creative stuff, as opposed to whatever people do after university, or in lieu of university, right? It's just like, good on those little jazz elves people. I'm stoked, man. So I'll just jump on to my next one, if that's all right, bud.
Oh, for sure.
And again, like I said, after the sort of thing about Lawrence Arms, I'm just kind of, it's like everything on here is good, and I vouch for it, but I haven't necessarily dug into it as much as I'm gonna. So I'll just say, Sam I Am from. So here's something. It's like I don't even know enough about them to say. I'm like, they're on No Idea Records, right? I know this, and I also know I saw them Brooklyn Vegan. That they actually have an album, like a new album coming out. Their first in quite some time, like next month. And the show notes, I'll actually have some detail to speak of it. I just kind of I rushed into the recording a little bit today, but no, man. So it's just this is one of those bands that like you hear other punk bands mentioned first, and then like that's how it was for me. And I'll just give a shout out to Hugo Moody. Geez, I'm hoping I'm saying your name right, dude. From St. Catharines, from Yesterday's Ring in Montreal.
Do you know was he also in a band called Fifth Hour Hero?
He could have been. He was on like they were on Fat Records.
Okay, because I think I might have seen because I've seen Fifth Hour Hero was folks that ended up at the St. Catharines.
Oh well, in that case, pre St. Catharines. See,
I think I might have seen one of his old bands, possibly. So
it's he's a lifer. That's all I can say.
Yeah, for sure.
And on the Yesterday's Ring record that they put out last year, one of the lyrics on the songs is literally, "Do you remember the night we sat up all night smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, listening to Sam I Am?" And I'm like, this is the one that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm like, I hear Chris Waller mention it on an interview or something, as if that shouldn't have been enough to make it cool, right? But like, I'm like, okay, I got my post-divorce money. I'm gonna hit the No Idea website and just get as many other albums as I can that are still in print. And I'll admit that I'm still making my way through them to the point where I'm not even going to be able to even say like, oh, this one's better than that one. I can't do that yet because I buy vinyl by the dozens. That's kind of my vibe lately. But again, I was just so like the first time I threw it on, I'm just like, oh yeah, this is the shit. You can see why. It stayed kind of local and at that level, because I mean, it's like with Hot Water Music when they were putting out those records on No Idea. I mean, it's like you love the passion, you love the music, you love everything about it, but there are very much limits on, say, just the recording capability.
Oh yeah.
That you get that with the smaller label of that size. Because I mean, we're talking like, from what I gather, No Idea. I mean, just Gainesville, Florida, tons of influential bands besides Hot Water and Sam I Am, just all kinds of good shit. For years, right? Consistently, they've been so good and so they care about what they do. I'm going into much more of a ramble than I expected to on this, dude. But anyways, it just it's just like if it went to Vagrant Records or if it went to like like Epitaph and they had tens of thousands more dollars or more than they did, you could be like, man, this could have friggin' been way more popular than it was. Not that it needs to get popular. It leaves enough of a legacy that they're coming out, and like I said, I'll have some stuff about their new one coming out. But yeah, man, I mean, this is just one of those bands like you even mentioned on my Instagram, I think when I posted the picture of the record, you're just like, I love these guys. They don't think they get enough credit. So this is one of those things I'm just like, I'm discovered them 20 years later than everybody else did, same with Lawrence Arms. So I'm thankful there's stuff out for me in this genre to still discover, honestly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
dude, I mean, was that's kind of all I got to say about that one. Was there anything you wanted to reply to on that?
Yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
Sam I Am are a band that I listened to them. They were just, I feel like they were a band that was just like around a lot at a certain point, like in the 90s. Like when the first bar that I worked at when I was like 21, when I lived in Calgary, was basically all run by dudes in bands, but like dudes in bands that were on like I don't know if you've heard the band Field Day from Calgary. Nope. Okay, they were just kind of like long running pop punk band in town that like when Face to Face would come to town, that's who'd opened up. Anyways, that was like the manager of the bar that I worked at. But like,
oh, nice.
Sam I Am were one of the bands. It was like Sam I Am and Blink 182, I think, were the two bands that were in like the highest rotation at one point at this place, The Works, that I worked at. And then it's just like people just forgot about them. I don't know what happened. Like they're actually from the Bay Area.
Oh, is that so? Okay.
Yeah. They were part of they were kind of like the much more technically proficient and better at songwriting second band of a band called Isocracy, that were like one of the original like Gilman Street like when the Gilman Street project first opened up in Berkeley in the 80s.
Some pedigree.
Isocracy were one of the bands that would like play with Operation Ivy, and then I
think
that
totally explains the connection to Asian Man Records.
Yeah, it was like, however many of the guys from Isocracy, when that band broke up, they're like, hey, let's start this other band that's actually good at what we're doing. And that was Sam I Am. It just, like I said, like, I don't know if it was just like the labels they were on didn't exist anymore or what, but I feel like they just dropped off the face of the planet.
Well,
that's cool that No Idea is re-releasing their stuff.
Yeah, no, I was surprised. I'm like, yeah, there's 3 records here, and one of them's a double. And I'm not sure, who's putting out the new one and whatnot. Yeah. But like I said, I saw that on Instagram. I was like, oh, frig, that's actually really freaking cool. So, okay, man. Well, we're sort of moving into here. You got more than a third one on your list. But
yeah,
what is the third one on your list, dude?
Yeah, the third one. I figure I'll jump into one of the revisitings I've been doing.
Fair enough.
So the biggest one, another one inspired by a book that I finally got around to finishing, or partially inspired by. The book was I read a lot of memoirs and biographies, so I like to read a lot of like artist memoirs and biographies. But it was Tom Sharpling's memoir, It Never Ends.
I don't know who that is.
Tom Sharpling is a comedy writer and broadcaster and voice actor and director, etc.
Wow.
He's hosted a show called The Best Show. It's currently sort of a podcast and live stream. It originally started on a community radio station in New Jersey called WFMU. It was called The Best Show on WFMU originally, but like, anyways, he's one of these people that's been around broadcasting and like indie rock and stuff like that for decades.
Neat. Very cool.
And he's does a lot of like comedy collaborations with John Worster, who's the drummer from Superchunk and the Mountain Goats and a bunch of other projects.
He stepped away from Superchunk. He quit Superchunk. Like,
I didn't know that. I know that. Yeah. Well,
so I don't even.
He does so much. He was in Superchunk for the longest time. But anyways, Sharpling and Worster was their comedy sort of duo for the longest time. But anyways, I finally finished reading Tom's book, and when he talks about The Best Show, anytime there was something musical, like if they needed like a musician, they would have Ted Leo was usually the person that would be involved. And also, so I've been digging back into Ted Leo and the Pharmacists.
You mentioned your affinity for them on one of our first episodes. You mentioned that they were one of the groups or artists that you really enjoyed, for a long time. Yeah.
And his it was just the 20th anniversary of his third album as Ted Leo and the Pharmacists, Hearts of Oak, which came out I think like February 11th, 2003 on Lookout Records. And
Lookout Records, dope.
Exactly.
Very cool.
And it's like,
that's legit,
it was his second album for
That's...
Lookout, but like I feel like it's the one that had the first kind of quote unquote, not like hits, but songs that kind of like broke out. Like he had one song called Ballad of the Sin Eater that I saw him I remember seeing him live here in Halifax, I think like 2005, 2006. And like Ballad of the Sin Eater was the song that like all the like random college kids that were there knew. Um for whatever reason. But yeah, he's just, and it's, I mean, he's one of these, and yeah, he's another one of these artists that like started out kind of playing sort of faster, heavier stuff. He was originally in a hardcore band in New York called Citizen's Arrest in the 80s.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, and he was only on like a couple of their early recordings, but I think he's done some reunion shows with them, but then he's kind of moved to more melodic pursuits. And then finally, sort of around 2000 or so, performing with the backup band as Ted Lieu and the Pharmacists, who I like to describe as like, what if the Clash grew up listening to the Clash in New Jersey?
Quite good, quite
yes.
good.
But like, because it's a mix. I mean, it's punk rock, but it's also, he draws a lot of mix from like reggae and like pop, different kinds of pop music, and he's got a big Irish folk influence in there, and like we'll cover like when every time he's come to Halifax a couple of times, and every time he's covered Farewell to Nova Scotia, like, and we'll play
ironically
like Dirty
or not,
Old Town,
that
like
remains the
stuff.
question.
Yeah, well, no, it's like because he's just legitimately interested in that kind of music, and he's very much like he hasn't really been. I think the last Ted Lieu and the Pharmacist album came out in 2010. He did a pretty good album with Amy Mann.
Hey, that's cool. She's really good, man.
Yeah, around like 2013.
Yeah. Okay.
Under the name The Both. It's like him and Amy Mann, and I think they've got like the drummer from Yola Tango playing with them as well. And it's pretty cool. And they actually, that duo released their first recording they released was like came out on one of the final episodes of The Best Show as like a radio broadcast. And like Ted Lieu was just a big part of this a big part of this show over the years. Like on my laptop that's upstairs and like pretty much dead, I have like a ton of like recordings I found on the internet of him playing at like benefit shows for radio stations and stuff, and like doing all these like cool obscure covers from like Motown songs to like crust punk songs, and then like Pogues covers and stuff like that. And he's just like
dirty old town.
Exactly, but he's got like
town. Sorry, man, I've been wanting to.
He's got like I think Ted Lieu and the Pharmacist released like 6 or 7 albums and like a few EPs, and like I said, there's a bunch of like live videos and like videos of them doing like cool covers and stuff out there, and like they've got a really deep catalog, and it's like, for lack of a better term, smart punk music, I guess you could say, with like a pretty deep influences. And like between seeing talk of like Hearts of Oak's 20th anniversary and like finishing reading this book that talked a lot about like another artistic project that he was pretty heavily involved in over the years, that like it was an excuse to kind of dig back into his music for a bit. And
man, I love that kind of stuff. The overlappingness of it, right? It's you going from a book into recordings and then into the YouTubes and whatnot, and back again. It's I mean, I think I think the range of stuff that you're interested in, actually, Dan, is quite interesting. Just like, I know you're interested in the performing arts and this and that, and comedy and writing and musicianship and all this. And I just think, every time I kind of get a glimpse of, the stuff that you're into above and beyond, say, the music, I'm like, man, this is one friggin' cool cat with some good taste here. So thanks for sharing that, man. That's
no
dope.
Problem. What's your next pick?
Well, I'm going to just bundle up two of them together. And this is sort of, again, more on the side of, they got things that I'm looking forward to this year, and relatively new to me as artists, the both of them. And that may actually get me fairly close down to the very end of my list, to be honest, for what I have prepared to talk about. So I'm just going to bundle them out both here, because you've heard me talk about Northcote before, right? That was on my favorite bands from BC episode. as it turns out, Matt Gould, Northcote, as it were, with some very solid musicians behind him,
Mhm.
have he has an album coming out in middle of March for streaming. Hopefully, it's going to be out on vinyl as well. And again, it's called the record that's coming out. It's called Whole Heart, and according to his sort of press kit that he's sort of been putting out with it, it has a lot to do. It may sort of be his George Harrison-esque album from the sound of it, and I'm only saying that because he's sort of been taken some pretty serious interest in Eastern and specifically in musical instrumentation from India, in sort of a notion of kind of making space for himself as a late 30s kind of person, trying to sort of make figure out what he's doing and sort of how to move forward, I think is the notion there. And for me, the album that he put out for me that kind of resonated the most is the one from 7 years ago or something. Sorry, dude, but it's the more like just straight up kind of upbeat, up-tempo rock record. I don't think this record is going to be that, and nor should it be. It sounds like more spare arrangements. But I will also say that the dude's going out and doing some very select touring in around BC, and I think going into Alberta a bit this spring to support this. So I mean, I'm just like, man, I'll get my ass to Kelowna. I'll get my ass to Vancouver just to show up at this smaller venue to see this guy who's just really singing his face off. He just really friggin' cares. And it's like, well, maybe his particular current offering, doesn't make me want to, rock the hell out with my, IPA. But still, man, I just like giving credit to anybody who's putting himself out there in, as an artist and just try to make a go of it and just bring in real truth and sincerity to what they're doing. Corny as that sounds, and I think this guy just friggin' does that all over the place. So I'm personally looking forward to it. The only shows that he actually has a band with him are going to be the ones on Vancouver Island, and I'm almost just like, man, I should fucking go to Victoria. I haven't been to Victoria since I moved to this province, but I don't know, to be determined. And I guess I'll just, that was a bit more than bundling it in, but I'll just, I've already kind of mentioned Moody. God, I hate this. Muddy. I mean, you know who I'm talking about, dude? I mean, okay. Anyway, the dude from St. Catharines, as we were talking before, right. Hugo Moody. I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. He's liked my things on Instagram when I had mentioned his records, and I'm like, man. I even at one point said, man, this thing that you just posted looks sick. Can you I don't understand French, but this looks sick. And he translated the post into English for me. And then on Facebook, I was like, he's like, I said, man, he kind of posted this. The new record's called Bad Vibrations, and he's putting it out on his Bandcamp. The dude just got back from touring Mexico by himself, and it's a completely French language record. But the bits of it that I've listened to are just stellar. I'm like, I don't even care. I don't even care that I don't understand the language of this as such. He's like, because this is a guy who's, he's been on, he's been on Fat Records, right? With the St. Catharines, and it's like they had some French songs on it, but most of the time they're writing in English. And then, same thing with Yesterday's Ring, the record they put out last year. It's a record of English language songs. And he's just, this guy, it's just in terms of his presence, he's doing this musical stuff, but then, he also is a talented illustrator. And at one point, he's one of these few artists where I haven't even gone to the record label. I just mention him on Instagram. He mentioned my thing, something back to me. And I'm like, well, can I just, send you the money for this? And he was like, yeah, just go to my website. I'll pack it up myself. Like, friggin' A right, man. So that was really kind of a rambling and sort of tangential kind of, the notes will be a little bit more thoughtful, I hope, sir. But again, just a younger musician, younger than me, late 30s or whatever. He's, tons of touring experience. And the last thing I'll mention with this guy, apart from this, is there's a real strong connection between the St. Catharines and Frankie Stubbs and Leatherface,
Nice.
right? Because they did the record Medication. Medication was the St. Catharines plus Dickie Hammond from Leatherface. And it was the last thing that Dickie Hammond recorded before he passed away.
Oh, wow.
And Frankie Stubbs actually had a vocal point and some parts on the St. Catharines or the Yesterday's Ring record. They had a song about Frankie Stubbs, and then Frankie Stubbs sang on it. So this is all to say that I've got tons of respect for this dude. He's a wildly imaginative, Canadian artist from Montreal and that whole scene. And just more power to these dudes, really, both of them. Sorry, I went real long.
That's okay. That's okay.
That'll probably be me winding up, except if, we get a last couple of minutes for something. But but how about you, man? I mean, what's all your thing with this?
I guess I'll go through my last couple ones here.
Sure.
There was another one, I guess another new artist that I've been listening to, just from seeing them pop up on a bunch of year-end lists, is a band from Portland, Oregon called Long Knife, who, when I looked into them, I realized their drummer played in bands. There's a story that I tried to summarize in the notes for the 5 bands that change your life for better or worse, of the one time I met my former idol Aaron Comet Bus at a very messy party where possibly self-incriminating things happened that I did not go into in the story in the notes.
Hopefully pre-internet, dude.
Yes, all very pre-internet.
Okay. Pre-cell phone.
Anyways, all pre-cell phone. It was very, very interesting, exciting evening on a lot of ways. But anyways, the drummer from Long Knife's first band was one of the opening bands at this ridiculous all-night show that I was at the time. But anyways, they're from they're big ugly dudes playing big ugly songs from Portland, Oregon, and I like them a lot.
And they're not called Poison Idea. But
that's the thing. I didn't want to. It's I hate to draw that comparison, but at the same time,
you can't help it, man. It's there to be had.
It's but
big ugly dudes from Portland. Yeah.
Big ugly, but their songs actually, they know how to write songs. It's they're fast and heavy. They're fast at times and heavy.
Poison Idea.
Yeah, but they know, their songs have verses and choruses and hooks.
Nice.
It almost reminds me, for some reason I thought it's what if Hoyt Axton started a hardcore band?
I do not get that reference, but I assume that it's funny.
The dad from Gremlins, who was a singer-songwriter in the 70s.
Who
wrote some pretty great country singer.
The dad from Gremlins?
Yes. If you ever get a chance, look up some Hoyt Axton. But anyways, he had a lot of kind of rambling man. His kind of rambling man kind of songs, I guess you could say. And just the more I listen to Long Knife's album that came out last year, Curb Stomp Earth, which I know is a pretty
Curb Stomper. That sounds like
Curb Stomp Earth.
Okay.
But
it's Stomper. Yeah. Anyway.
It's listening to some of the songs on that. It's if you tried to just play them acoustic and sang them rather than shouted them. It's no, this could be just a good song about trying not to get picked up by the cops while you're walking home drunk. Or
fair enough.
Their album closer, Coast to Coast, is their lament of how they wish that conspiracy theorists were just fun guys that talked about aliens like Art Bell used to on his old radio show, rather than folks like Alex Jones. And that got a laugh out of me.
More
smart,
alien,
fun.
Yeah.
It's just smart, fun, well-written, angry hardcore punk. And they're not afraid to have Poison. I guess Poison. I hate to throw Poison Idea in there as a comparison again, but even how they had some keyboards and stuff at the end. There's a few sax solos here and there. There's one song where their singer kind of does more an almost just spoken quiet thing that I thought could be this could be the best Headstone song ever.
Okay.
On like a
Headstones.
hardcore record.
Headstones.
Or, you know, like just like, you know,
Oh,
almost
okay.
that like they could, you know, if they wanted to, they could be playing that sort of like just straight ahead rock and roll type stuff, but you know, they turn up fast and angry as well. But like I said, they know how to write songs. And yeah, the
Always
album's
a plus.
26 minutes long. It's on Blackwater
26 minute
Records.
long? How many
Yeah.
songs in that period?
I think like 13 songs.
Bring it. Yes.
Yeah.
That's
And
a
yeah,
good ratio.
they're just like a
Yeah.
great fun band. Like, you know, they've got, this is like their most high profile release yet. They've got a couple other EPs available on streaming services as well. And I think like some older demos and stuff that you can find on YouTube. And yeah, like I said, big ugly dudes playing big ugly well-written songs, and I'm into it.
Sick.
And
you're bundling them with another artist or group.
Yes, and the other artist, that was the other revisit I was doing, just because
Yeah.
they released an album in the past week that's really good. That, you know, I've only been able to get into so much given that it came out 3 days ago. But Screaming Females from New Jersey
I didn't know they had a new one out.
Yeah, they put out a new album on the 17th.
I'm aware of them. Yeah.
Called Desire Pathway. I'm still on the record label's mailing list, like email mailing list from like forever ago. So
Nice.
I made sure to check it out as soon as it came out, and it's great. And I mean, it's their 8th album. They've been around since I think the mid-aughts. And in my show notes, I was kind of wondering like what it is in the water in New Jersey, like that, you know, between like 2000 and like 2000 and, you know, 8 or whatever, produced, like you get like Ted Leo and the Pharmacists, then you get like the Ergs, and then, you know,
you get
Gaslight
Anthem.
Yeah, Gaslight Anthem, and like Screaming Females in there too, and like all these other bands are just all.
People always forget that Danzig comes from New Jersey.
Oh yeah, that's the thing.
That's back. This is a precursor to all of this.
To tie it back to one of my other picks, Tom Sharpling is also from New Jersey, and like a big part of the Best Show was always, you know, Jersey pride kind of thing, because like giving love to the ham and eggers. And I don't know if it's like these are the ham and eggers of rock and roll, or if it's just like ambient Springsteen sweat or what. But
Titus Andronicus, man, are friggin' dope too. Another great band.
They are. They're one of the best live bands I've seen ever, I think. But
I would love to see them live. I have no doubt that they would be. Yeah.
They played the Halifax Pop Explosion here probably. Oh God, I think I was in library school, so it would have been like 2008 or 2009.
That's a long ass way from New Jersey, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's for a band of that level to make their way there, like that's.
It was part of a music festival, so
yeah,
like a fairly well. Actually, it was the last shows they did with the like violinist guitarist that played on the Monitor.
Oh shit.
I can't remember her name, but she's done some other stuff on her own since. But yeah, it was her. She played her last shows in Titus Andronicus in Halifax.
Halifax Pop Explosion still going strong.
Yeah, the Halifax Pop Explosion. Pardon?
Halifax Pop Explosion still going strong. It still happens every year, dude.
It stopped a couple of years ago. There was a whole situation where there was an artist that really did not feel comfortable with the organizers and some stuff that happened at a show, and just kind of it's
went down the shitter. Okay,
it's on the internet if you want to look it up, but yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I realized, like, I used to hear about it for, you know, like, it's just kind of.
And it was a thing actually. Yeah, it was a thing for quite a while. Like,
yeah, it was.
And you know, you'd see some good shows there, and you know.
And then he swooped in to replace it. Like, what's the?
There's other. I mean, the past couple of years, like music festivals haven't been as much of a thing in general.
Of course not.
But I mean, there's been. I'm trying to think of what it's called. I think it's called Every Seeker is the name of the festival now. It's a little more avant-garde. It used to be called Obey Convention. Actually, my old shitty hardcore band that I sang in, that I moved here to sing in, with like. Yeah, just with like, dude I knew from Fredericton.
Some righteous dudes.
Some people I knew invited me out here to sing for this band, and that band's last show was the first iteration of this festival that is now called Every Seeker, and kind of has shifted its focus. It used to be kind of like weird punk and noise mostly, and now it's like, they have a lot of different things. It's like
more eclectic.
Yeah, like I feel like the art school scene is pretty keyed into it.
Shout out to NASCAD.
Yeah. The original organizer, or the person that started the festival originally, a guy named Chick White, who used to sing for a band called The Hold, who were around in the aughts in Halifax. He moved kind of out to the outskirts of town, shall we say, around the same time that I moved to the outskirts of town for a little while. So he was like, my one like sort of flash of the old life I'd run into at the Porter's Lake Superstore, on grocery day, back in the Muscadabbit Harbor years.
Muscadabbit Harbor. We got Nova Scotia isms abundantly here, folks. When I hear Muscadabbit Harbor, I think of Joel Plaskett. Like, take me down the river to the Muscadabbit Harbor, down at the Khyber. Sensational record. Joel, if you ever listen, that was sensational. Sorry, dude.
That's okay. Just to quickly tie it back, though, that new Screaming Females album, Desire Pathways, is really great. They're just like, a really rockin' melodic punk band where like their I guess their singer guitarist Marissa Paternoster, I didn't realize until today that she was one of Spin's top 100 guitarists of all time, apparently.
Goodness gracious.
And I can believe it, because this band has some like serious riffs. And it's, when you see them play live, it's like, I mean, yeah, it's just like, tiny person with a big guitar just playing like huge riffs, and she's got like a giant, big vibrato voice. And
that would be a parcel of sorts that's being delivered to me, so I don't need to go address that right now.
All right. I'm really surprised that Screaming Females have not sort of
punched through a little bit wider more.
I know they've toured with like they toured with Garbage, when Garbage did a reunion.
That's pretty like, high level, man.
Yeah, I mean, like they've released, actually, I think they even did a collaboration with that band at one point. Like they're one of those, like, your favorite band's favorite band kind of situations, I think. And they're another band that I remember. I got all nostalgic for something that's kind of hard to watch now, literally, because YouTube videos from the early 2000 teens do not necessarily hold up.
No.
But the Chris Gethard show, which was it was like a mainstream sort of cable iteration of it, but it started out as like a New York cable access sort of like Wayne's World with pop punk weirdos, basically.
Nice.
And like,
I can dig it.
Yeah, Screaming Females were one of the bands that would show up as musical guests frequently on the show.
Cool.
And that was one of the ways I initially got familiar with them. And I hadn't heard from them in a while. I think their last record came out like 2018. And yeah, this new one came out last week. It's really good, worth checking out. Those are my picks, I guess.
Yeah, no, man, that's awesome. And like I said, we probably will have some further ephemera in the notes, maybe even some additional bands that we sort of think of here. Like I've got a whole paragraph I'm going to say on the notes about Bad Religion.
Nice.
And the only thing I'm even going to slide in there is simply that I never gave them as much credit, I think, as they deserved when they were popular, at the most popular in the 90s when we were in high school, because I'm like, yeah, all those bands sound like that. But what I failed to recognize at the time, all those bands weren't there when Bad Religion was there. Bad Religion is sort of one of the originators of that melodic hardcore sound that just
they're the reason they sound like that.
They're the reason that all of these bands, like in the 90s, after grunge sort of petered out, or while grunge was still going on, even, it's like, so yeah, like Offspring, Rancid, all that stuff. All of those bands that were on Epitaph that sounded like Bad Religion, that got really popular, they were on Epitaph because the guitar player from Bad Religion started Epitaph to release the first Bad Religion record in 1981. And I just, reading Jim Rulin's book about that he co-authored with Bad Religion, their biography or whatever from a couple of years ago. it's just like, okay, I get it. I'm just going to get all of it now and just let it sink in and enjoy it for what it is. There, I rammed it in.
All right.
Dan, thanks for that. Thanks for letting me
No
sort of sneak
problem.
that one last one through. Folks, I think we've reached the end. And Dan,
so.
I've enjoyed this immensely, man. Anything else
too.
you want to sort of say on the way out here, dude?
Oh yeah, I wanted to say rest in peace to Dave Jolicoeur from De La Soul, who I talked about on one of our earlier episodes.
Yes.
Passed away recently. Unfortunately, it's like before that Screaming Females album came out, my pick was just going to be the first couple of weeks of March for new musical releases and or re-releases, just because, like I said, like Zulu's album's coming out then. MS Paint, who I talked about on a previous episode, have their debut album coming out.
Just went on to the digital streaming for the first
time. That's the
not?
Same weekend, March 3rd. Their first 6 albums are finally going to be commercially available again. They've been out of print.
Fucking dope. I'm looking forward to that.
And it's, he passed away just before that happened. And it's just kind of tragic.
That is sad, man. Like just on the cusp of reaping that windfall and getting that recognition.
Exactly.
Dang.
And like, I think the other guys, like, I'm pretty sure it's been a little while since he's been like in good health enough to do a whole lot of performing, but like, because I think like the health issue, he passed away from like heart problems, I think, and I think it had been like an ongoing thing for a little while. But like, even just like stuff that I've seen, even like videos of like De La Soul participating in other like artists events, it's usually been like the other guy, Postanus, the other rapper in the group, and then like usually they'll have someone else like do all of Dave's parts. But no, it was just kind of sad because, like I said, like when I talked about them previously in an episode, they were like my first favorite band.
Hugely influential on a very personal level.
Yeah, exactly, and that was kind of just kind of a sad thing. But
anyways, rest in power. Rest in power for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for that, Dan. And again, thanks for everybody who's checking us out. We are streaming on the various platforms that we, are out there. And I guess we'll be coming to you again every couple weeks-ish. So, Dan, thanks as ever. Everybody, thanks for listening.
Thank you, man.
Today, New Brunswick, tomorrow, the world.
See ya.